Welcome back. Is MAGA Nation being fleeced by Donald Trump? Those are the accusations being leveled by prosecutors in Washington, D.C. They're now looking into the tens of millions of dollars that his supporters happily donated so that he could fight election fraud. That's what he said he was going to use the money for. But this is just the latest investigation that's swirling around Donald Trump and his friends. Could any of these investigations stick? I'm joined now by Andrew Cherkasky. He is an attorney and a former federal prosecutor as well. He is a former JAG attorney. Okay, Andrew. So first and foremost, the whole notion that the Save America PAC said to its supporters, send money and we're going to fight this election fraud effort. Is there anything in the law that says you absolutely can't spend the money anywhere else? Like, what do the rules actually say?
Well, when it comes to this new investigation that seems to be out there, this grand jury looking into how this money was gathered, I think ultimately looking at what potential crimes could have been committed. I think on one hand, the idea that Donald Trump was soliciting for this money with claims that there was a fraudulent election, knowing full well that had been debunked by basically every attorney who legitimately represented him as time went by, that could be a theory of mail fraud or wire fraud. And so I think that that could be something that could actually cause him significant issues, especially since this happened after he left office. Now, on the side of how they can spend PAC money, I'm not as convinced that that's going to be an easy case to make, because the way you can spend money through a PAC is actually pretty unfettered. And I don't think that absent some sort of very specific types of spending, they're going to have as strong of a case there. So it could all come down to the claims that he was making to get that money.
Okay, let me move on to the other topic. Trump says he might sue Fox News. He doesn't like what the Lincoln Project did. They ran an ad on Fox News saying that Donald Trump only, said the election was stolen to get his supporters to send money, which is what we were just talking about. And here's what he sent out on his social media site. He said, the Paul Ryan, and he spelled it R-Y-U-N. That's not our spelling mistake. The Paul Ryan run Fox only has high standards for Trump ads, but not for anyone else. The perverts should not be allowed to, quote, false advertise, and Fox News should not allow it to happen, Sewell, in court. So let's be clear, Lincoln Project bought the ad through a cable company, not Fox News. Let's be brief on this one. I mean, defamation's a pretty high bar. Does he have any hope in anywhere of doing anything about this?
Well, this is just a wild Donald Trump statement. I think this probably goes back to his early days as a businessman. I mean, this is his MO, to threaten everyone who upsets him with a lawsuit, to see what sort of fear he can stir in them. I don't think that this is going anywhere, and seems like a classic Trump effort at a scare tactic. I don't know that anybody's falling for that anymore.
Yeah, it's really hard to sue, news, or certainly sue a channel for ads. Okay. Right. I mean, unless there's real defamation, but, All right. So this is rapid fire tonight. Holy cow. I hope you brought your A game. The DOJ has decided to appeal the decision that the Florida judge made to hold on and get a special master, and everybody give me your names tomorrow. Well, now the DOJ has appealed. My question for you is this. That could take months. And the DOJ is appealing to the 11th Circuit. And there's 6 out of 11 of the judges on the 11th Circuit are Trump appointees. Is that like a super risky, crazy move, or am I missing something?
Well, I heard Bill Barr saying just the other day that he really supports this appeal. And there are a lot of experts out there, people who have been close with the DOJ and who have analyzed this and think that this is a strong appeal and that the judge was out of line in granting the special master. I don't know that I am quite as firm in that camp. I think that this is such an unprecedented set of circumstances that it absolutely is something where a special master could have an important role in making sure that everybody is handling this as nonpartisan as possible and as fair as possible. Now, I think that there are some issues, especially the classified documents. The DOJ is saying that the intelligence community has an immediate need for these classified documents that, according to this order, essentially removes that ability of the intelligence community. Again, they've got to establish not just that it could have an impact. I think that in order to undo this ruling, they're going to have to point to some specifics, which ultimately gets us into the issue of a classified trial in the first place. We as the public aren't going to be able to know the details of what they're talking about.
I'm only annoyed because it slows the process down of getting the information. I get it. I got to be patient with justice. But as a journalist, I'm like, come on, we got to wait more. Okay, lastly, and I only have 40 seconds here, but I think you'll be able to answer quickly. When you get a pardon, it's not really settled at this point whether that means I admit it, I did it, thank you for the pardon, sir, or I'm taking your pardon and I didn't do it. Some people say it's the former, some people say it's the latter. What do you say about that? Because Steve Bannon, you know, is going to have to take that pardon up to the Manhattan, DA's prosecution against him.
Well, any statements he made in the course of getting the pardon will be able to be used against him. Now, if he, just for the sake of getting the pardon alone, is that going to be used against him? I don't think that the state is going to be able to directly use that. Ultimately, I think the most interesting point here is that just because you're pardoned by the president doesn't mean a state can't prosecute you. And that's exactly what's happening in the state of New York now.
Oh, look how quick you were. You were terrific. Andrew Cherkasky, thank you so much. Can't wait to have you back.
Thank you, Ashleigh.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.